G'day, everybody. I'm not going to carry on like this, but I came to Australia actually in 1972, the very first time, and that was always the time the Whitlam government. And arriving back at Circular Quay yesterday, just to see Circular Quay yesterday, was just thought, what an absolute pleasure it is to come here again and to be invited by APRA and my good friends who I met in the last 24 hours. It's been an absolute joy. Did I say something wrong? Anyway, so that was a great speech. If you don't mind saying, if David Cameron could just say half of that stuff, actually, I think we'd be a lot happier. It was really good. It's, again, great to be in this young country, as we know, as Mrs. Ingram, Donna said, this is a country of an extraordinary antiquity, extraordinary cultural background, and it's just to feel it. Last night, I must admit, that vivid performance in Circular Quay with what was happening on the Opera House, it was just gobsmacking. So my pitiful little contribution, which is about to start. Hello. Takes up. Nearly finished. Bang. Good. Thank you very much. That, by the way, I chose that because it's actually a piece of production music supplied by one of my members, Wes One. I promised I'd give them a credit. And it's called The Olympians. Now, I've called my little peroration The Olympian Struggle of and for Music. Slightly a pompous title, you may agree. But I had a subset to it, which was bracket. It was after the title. It was going to then say, from creation via disintermediation to immortality. But they haven't picked that up too well. But anyway, by the way, just this weekend, there's no place on earth I'd rather be now, but if I were anywhere else, I would probably be in front of the television on Saturday evening, London time, looking towards Azerbaijan for this reason here. This is me last week with Engelbert Humperdinck, if you recognize the man. You probably won't believe it. I'm very intrigued to know how he gets on. Apparently, there's one thing in favor of him, there's the one thing not in favor of him. He is more or less deaf. So I have no idea what that means when you're standing on a stage about to sing the UK's Eurovision Song Contest song, and you've got no sound coming through your earphones or whatever they need. But and the other thing is apparently he's still very big in Eastern Europe, so that may count. They count for the UK vote. So that's him, and me. Anyway, the reason as I say, I went to a songwriting seminar about a year ago and was listening to Mike Chapman, and I was sort of intrigued about his manner. He said, I write songs, I get a title first, and then everything follows from that. Get the title right and everything follows, which I thought was a pretty good way of describing his way of songwriting. But I picked up on that methodology. So what, in effect, therefore, the top line of what I'm going to speak about in the 20 minutes is the Olympian struggle of and for music. But I propose to cover, in the next 20 minutes, a few things. The prehistory of the music industry, the Olympic Games, some lessons learned, the highs and lows of our global business, the credo of music publishing, the challenges of the digital age, and the coming of the Titans. Now, my story begins pre-Olympian. Maybe Donna could outdo me in terms of antiquity, but my story begins between the Tigris and the Euphrates in what is modern Iraq. And this tablet, hello, I've gone wrong, sorry, what's happened here? Oh, sorry. Oh my God. Help. Dear, what have I done? Oh, my God. Oh, no. I'm so sorry. What have I done? No, voila. Sorry, I do apologize for that. Anyway, coming back, this is a tablet. On it, you'll see writing, imagery, symbols. And apparently, this is being described, this cuneiform script, as it's called. Archaeologists have said that it's actually the early form of musical notation. So my argument is, this is when rock music was invented. Moving on to the Olympic Games. Now, I just sort of give you a sort of great rundown of what's happening in London. I mean, the Olympics bandwagon, which I must admit, I was asked last night, how is London really excited about the Olympics? And I think the answer is yes. And of course, being in Australia, again, I got that great sense that the Olympics was such a great shot in the arm. It was such a wonderful experience for everybody in Australia. And I sincerely hope the same thing happens in the UK. Interestingly enough, I picked up there the opening concert on the 27th of July will feature acts from all of the 4 nations of the UK. Duran Duran representing the UK, England, Snow Patrol for Northern Ireland, Stereophonics will represent Wales, of course, and Paolo Nutini will represent Scotland. And I hear you say, why Duran Duran? God knows. But you'd have thought Dizzy Rascal would have been a better choice, but there you go. Another interesting part of the Olympiad, of the cultural Olympiad, which goes in conjunction with the Games, is a project which PRS for Music have been very much, PRS Music Foundation has been very much involved with, called the 20 by 12 project. 20 new works, each 12 minutes in length, celebrating the Olympic Games. One of the things I must say, which I was again, one of them is an artist-composer called Sally Beamish has created a work called Spinal Cord to portray an individual's fight to recover from paralysis. And I think that's a fight that exemplifies very much the Olympic spirit. Now, when I was, I think in the application or the invitation, I think I was asked to say what was my most important lesson from the music industry. And various answers to that. A very positive one for me, and I think the minister picked up, I think we'd all pick up, the extraordinary uplifting power of music. My father turned 99 on the 30th of April, and my father has been an enormous visitor to Australia, and he can't sing a note. I like to think I can sing a note, but the song that he always loves to hear sung to him is The Road to Gundagai. So I sing that to him. I sang it to him on his 99th birthday, and please God, next weekend when we're going to be celebrating the Queen's Jubilee, we'll be up here with my sister in Leeds, and he will insist that I sing it to him again. So please, if anybody's from Gundagai, there'll be a little place of Gundagai up in Leeds next weekend, and I'm looking forward to singing that. The negative things, I don't know if you know that wonderful quote credited to Hunter Thompson, that the music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free, and good men die like dogs. There is also a negative side. Students of music and sport can share many lessons. To be successful, you must have, and I think, again, the minister picked up on this, a whole series of attributes, it seems to me, from my experience. Talent, ambition, dedication, passion, adaptability, willingness to collaborate, hardworking, inured to rejection and failure, appreciative of glory. In fact, the Olympic ideals, citius, altius, fortius, faster, higher, stronger, could have equally applied to music. But I might also add you need clearly luck and good business management. Last night, actually, Mark Callahan reminded me that I think I promised to use a particular word in the course of my peroration, and that word, hopefully, is described by the expression of the extraordinary ability to conjure and juggle which is very much the part of our business, and not just the conjuring and the juggling and the creation of magic in a studio, or the playing of guitar, or playing the piano, or the keyboard, or the computer, or in terms of business management. What deal to do, what publishing contract to sign, what record deal to take up with, what manager to appoint. And the word, which I hope you don't mind, Mark Callahan, the word, if you wish, that I'd say that describes all those qualities or those requirements is prestidigitation. Prestidigitation. I've done it now, so they can rest easy. Another lesson that I've learned is that although there is no recording without a song, there is no absolute rule that determines that the hierarchy in the making of great music is necessarily in the order of the music first, then the performance, and then the production or the accompaniment. Or, put it another way, what made Odysseus, you may want to call him Ulysses, cry? All right? The gentleman on the right is Ulysses. There is a gentleman playing the lyre on the left-hand side. Why did Odysseus cry? Don't forget, this is the hero from Homer's Odyssey who had been 10 years fighting in Troy on the Greek side. After the war was over, he tried to make his way home. This story begins 7 years into his journey home. He's just been released by Calypso, this gorgeous siren who kept him locked up as her lover for 7 long, hard years, poor chap. But eventually she let him go. She gave him a boat to sail in. He set sail. And then the god Poseidon, who didn't like Ulysses stroke Odysseus, caused him to shipwreck. And then Odysseus had to swim ashore. He landed on this shore, and he met Nausicaa, this gorgeous creature again, the daughter of King Alcinous. And Nausicaa actually she was doing her washing in the sea. Those Greeks, you never know how they have their personal cleanliness is all about. But anyway, she was washing her kit in the sea and invited him up to the palace. And King Alcinous, her father, not knowing who this gentleman was, decided to throw a banquet for Odysseus. And he chose his favorite bard, a gentleman called Demodocus, to perform on the lyre and to sing. And as he started to sing, first of all he spoke about the conflict between Achilles and Odysseus. In the Iliad, this struggle between the two champions of the Greek cause. And Odysseus burst into tears. Why? Was he moved by the words of the song because the bard was singing about him, Odysseus? Or is he knackered and homesick, deeply depressed, not getting home to imagine what his wife must be like. He doesn't actually get back to see his wife Penelope for 20 years. But is he sad? He's now 17 years in, and he's not going to see her for another 3 years. Does that make him really depressed? Or is he deeply depressed by what's happening in Greece, presumably in those days as well? The Greek economy, even in Homer's time, wasn't of the best, I'm sure. Or, as Homer himself, a bard, suggests, is he weeping not for purely personal reasons, but because of the spectacle which he is witnessing? A great performance on a lyre of a musical work with powerful lyrics. One thing for sure, though, is that without a song, there would be no music publisher. And why am I crying now? If you see the tears welling up in me, is it the pleasure of being back in Australia again? Or is it the state of nirvana that I feel in my professional career representing publishers and their songwriters? I will shortly check, actually, when I'm looking at Fabini over there, to check that whether he's in a similar state as I am in, tears falling down his cheeks, representing Ampal. Anyway, I think that for the time being, I'm going to climb out of this Thompson Trench that I referred to earlier on, and I'd like to recite to you the creed of the music publisher. And imagine, if you will, as dawn breaks over London, my team and I climb the winding stair of a minaret on the 6th floor of British Music House in 29 Berners Street, London W1. From there, you can just make out the curvature of our publishing globe, which spins on its axis over 360 degrees, 365 days a year. And from there we chant our daily creed. We believe in the supremacy and value of the musical work, that it is our duty and joy to promote and protect it with all the tools that the great Queen Anne first made available to us 300 years ago, when she very presciently signed off what is subsequently called the Statute of Anne. We believe, therefore, in the philosophical and ideological basis of copyright, and indeed in the inalienable overriding moral right of the creator and author in a musical work. We believe that it is very hard to compete with free. We believe in a market economy, a mixed economy, whereby a rights owner should be free, not compelled, both to license his rights directly and indirectly through the services of transparent and efficient collective rights management. 4, we believe in the importance of our industry to our economies, as the Minister said as regards Australia as well. We bring jobs, joy, taxes, and VAT revenue, value-added tax revenue. We believe that enormous opportunities lie before us in new and developing markets, in India and China and Brazil and Africa. We believe in partnership with our writers and composers, first and foremost, without whom we are nothing. Across our industry, with our colleagues at our cross-industry body, UK Music, I believe a similar body exists in Australia, and in the context of trying to nail down a shifty, pusillanimous government such as we have in the UK, having a body which can speak out on behalf of the whole commercial industry is a vital and valuable tool. Partnership with our collection societies. We hope that our PRS for Music and APRA share many characteristics, in particular a strong service ethic whereby management works closely with writers and publishers to deliver a first-rate service both to members and to customers. What we cannot put up with is intransigence to change, Spanish practices, arcane distribution rules, and lack of transparency and accountability. We believe in global solutions for the global digital market. I would particularly highlight here the Global Repertoire Database, GRD for short, an enormous and necessary project to create an authoritative global database of musical works, which will be an essential supporting tool to enable better licensing of our rights and the efficient payment and distribution of royalties. And indeed, the GRD, I mean, you'll discover more, we have a session this afternoon, brings together partners from across our industry, publishers, collection societies, and APRA is very much an early partner in this project, author representatives, and digital service providers such as Google and Omniphone. We believe in education about the business of music publishing and copyright, and indeed at our AGM at the end of June, we will be premiering a film on music publishing, which I'm sure you're very excited to know more about in due course. We believe in education in music. And why is this important? As the Minister says, because a sustained music policy, whether within the formal education system or otherwise, delivers social and political value to society and government. Because an early and sustained connection with music must deliver longer-term dividends to our industry. Wider talent pool, appreciation of music as user and consumer, as instrumental performer or choral participator, early exposure to and understanding of the importance of the role of the creator and the value of creativity. So just to pick up some highs and lows, they say that in the nuclear winter, only the cockroach may survive. I say that in the digital winter, we as publishers must ensure that our songwriters survive. Publishers, like cockroaches, caressing the composer between their mandibles. I say winter. Some may say glorious summer. Has not the internet opened up unheard of opportunities for sharing, marketing, and promoting music, connecting with and keeping fans? Who needs a record label, they always say. My fear is that we may have lost artistic control, the right to say no to the use of a musical work in a way which offends my creativity and my integrity. Is there something wrong with that principle? But real control has now passed to the digital titans. I call them the gaffers. Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, all fighting to keep and control us. We are like sheep controlled into mammoth silos. Well, interesting enough, our intellectual property laws in the UK at the moment are being reviewed as we speak by Her Majesty's government at the behest, seemingly, of Google. We've had this review, which some call it the Google review, because Google said they couldn't set up business in the United Kingdom because of our copyright laws. Oh, yes. So what they went next door to the Irish Republic. They generated £2.1 billion of income in the United Kingdom, and they threaded that income through the Irish tax system, and they ended up paying, on that £2.1 billion, they paid £5 million in tax, a rate of less than 0.25%. I find that shameful, personally. And this, I fear that the gaffers have already achieved the online version of the panopticon. Now, the panopticon was designed by the 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham. The concept of the design is to allow an observer to observe, as in the Greek optikon, all inmates of an institution without them being able to tell whether or not they are being watched. Bentham himself described the panopticon as a new mode of obtaining power of mind over mind in a quantity hitherto without example. Now, this fear of mine may seem old-fashioned, Luddite, King Canute-like, paddling on the seashore as the irresistible tide flows in. The digital dream of the European Commission is an open web which can deliver choice and competition, innovation and opportunity, freedom and democratic accountability. That is all very well. But artists, writers, publishers, investors need to get paid. Are the rules of the internet any different from the offline world? Now, there's a fine judge in Ireland, Mr. Justice Peter Charlton, who had some very strong and persuasive comments to make about the internet in the case of Eircom and EMI, pointing out that the internet is merely one communication tool of many, and not, as he described it, an amorphous extraterrestrial body with an entitlement to norms that run counter to the fundamental principles of human rights. He then went on to say, the right to be identified with and to reasonably exploit one's own original creative endeavor, I regard as a human right, pointing out that this had existed in Irish law since before even the days of the Grateful Dead. And indeed, it's credited to St. Columba. And I remember there's a great story of St. Columba, which I won't go into now, but St. Columba had to adjudicate between ownership of a copy in an illuminated manuscript, which an abbot, one of the abbots from one of the monasteries, had nicked from another monastery and taken a copy of it. And he had to adjudicate on who was right. Was the copier right, or was the owner of the copy the original right? For good measure indeed, echoing Thompson, he then went on to say he thought that the internet was thickly populated by fraudsters, pornographers of the worst kind, and cranks. Now, he was pretty clear in his judgment, and in so doing rejected two key arguments made by critics of any legislative proposals that seek to enforce copyright on behalf of intellectual property owners. He rejected that internet access is a fundamental human right, and secondly, that copyright enforcement infringes privacy. Now, these arguments are, of course, very strongly voiced, whether in the context of we have a piece of legislation called the Digital Economy Act, which is now 2 years old. It was passed in April 2010, and it is still nowhere near being implemented. In fact, not a peep of implementation, could you say, has happened. Or of the brouhaha now surrounding the adoption of ACTA. I don't know if you've come across ACTA, the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement. Indeed, earlier on this year, on a cold Saturday in March, you see our office there, number 26. We had protesters outside our offices looking very disgruntled, but exactly what they were disgruntled about was less clear. Now, because From my reading of it, of this agreement, ISPs are not obliged to monitor traffic. It contains no web blocking provisions or graduated response regime. And it seems to me that rather than them standing around waving banners wearing Guy Fawkes masks, and bear in mind that Guy Fawkes himself, of course, was the Osama bin Laden of his generation in 1605, 1606, when he tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament. Those protesting might have been better employed actually reading the agreement. But clearly, we do have to find a balance between all the partners, all the people who are engaged in the digital market, whether from government, number one, MSPs, music service providers, search engines, ISPs, and rights owners. And for us, the working model is built upon three fundamental supports. One, licensing. After all, that is what publishers do best. Secondly, education information. For example, it's very simplest. A letter to a person alleged to be infringing copyright, suggesting that they might be interested in accessing music from a legal site, seems to be not a bad plan. And indeed, it always occurs to me that when we actually eventually do start sending these letters out under the Digital Economy Act, it might be suitable for Spotify or whatever to actually put some advertisement as part of the letter to suggest that punters might wish to turn their attention to legitimate sites. And thirdly, of the Trinity, the enforcement of rights against egregious copyright infringement. And I'm glad to see that the UK courts are taking this very seriously by granting injunctions against ISPs, requiring them to block or at least impede access to sites such as Pirate Bay. I must say, we were all fascinated to read about the exotic lifestyle of Mr. Kim.com. I love that picture, actually. But anyway, but eradicating that from, I will move on to the next. There we go, right out. But of the three, licensing is the most critical and most desired. 3 years ago, I invited Daniel Ek, the founder of Spotify, to come to our AGM. And I must say, a quietly spoken, matter-of-fact young man, but for me, an absolute Norse giant of mythical proportions. As I said to him at the time, we in the music industry have to make sure that you survive. Now, it took him 3 years, in fact, to develop the Spotify model, but most of that time was spent, in fact, winning the confidence of the established music industry, and in particular, the recording industry. I think Spotify has been a pioneer and has opened up the streaming subscription market to many other players, including RDO, Deezer, We7, Rara, etc. And I know, obviously, that Spotify have opened up this very week in Australia. So it's, again, a very exciting, I think it's a very exciting prospect for them. And we need to get behind these. I think we need to get behind these services. Clearly, we need to get paid. On this section, so I mentioned earlier the power of the gaffers, and we are like pygmies running around busily between the thighs of these digital giants. We need to get a fair share of the revenues that they derive from our music, which fills their pipes. Now, in conclusion, I get fed up hearing people say that the old model is dead, that the internet revolution has changed everything, that the future is access, not control, files, not physical. Should we fear change per se? No, no. Even Socrates, God bless him, was against writing to begin with, as he feared it would erode his memory. But he soon forgot about it. But anyway, crap. The history, so I'm losing my point. I'm nearly finished, by the way, just another wee page to go. The history of our music business has seen revolution before. As I say to young aspiring publishers on our induction courses, imagine, by way of comparison, the wiki effect on European society of the invention of the printing press. How amazing was that? Now, modern music publishing has passed through 4 ages. Rock, as I showed you on the first slide. We then moved to paper, plastic, and now, of course, focus on digital. But all of the latter 3 methods of delivery of music remain fundamental supports for our business, the business of music publishing. Because, as Antonio says, in Shakespeare's Tempest, whereof what's past is prologue, what to come in yours and my discharge. In yours and my discharge. The fundamentals shall remain now and for the future. One, there is great music and there is not great music. But at the end of the day, the people will judge and be moved. And no amount of promotion on Facebook and Twitter will put polish on this turd. Secondly, musical talent is no doubt a gift of the gods, and no greater god have we just lost than Robin Gibb. But the truly successful are absolute professionals who are prepared to put in the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours. And clearly, I mean, the Gautier success in the UK and the US is reward for patient commitment to songwriting and artistic development over a long period. Thirdly, we must never compromise on the value of music. The internet pipes will be silent without the poetry and melody of music. We must resist the erosion of copyright. And fourthly, we publishers are survivors, as I said, like the cockroach, created to work professionally and passionately for our writers and composers. And fifthly, great music is immortal. A leader in the London Times on Tuesday of last week ended, Robin Gibb's music will be remembered by millions, but what doubles its potency is that it will be remembered in a million different ways. Thank you very much.